Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Church's teaching on organ donation. Every year, 13 August is celebrated as World Organ Donation Day in order to create an awareness of organ donation and to motivate people to donate their organs in an ethical manner. In India, the Times of India newspaper, in partnership with Kokilaben Dhirubhai Ambani Hospital, Mumbai, has been running an organ donation campaign every year to encourage people to sign up as organ donors. The recent headlines of India Today magazine of 5th January 2020 was India Organ Crisis Deepens. Hence, we ask the important question, what is organ donation? Organ donation is a process of removing an organ from a person who has given his or her consent and placed or transplanted in another person by surgery. The person who gives the organs is called a donor, while a person who receives the organ is called a recipient. At the very outset, I want to let you know some facts about organ donation in the world and also in India. Recent statistics of 2017 tell us that Spain has the highest organ donation rate in the world at 46.9 per million people, followed by Portugal with 34 per million people, Belgium with 33.6 per million people, Croatia 33.0 million, and the United States of America 32 million people. Unfortunately, India has among the lowest rate of organ donation in the world at only 0.8 per million population. According to Asia News International, as of November 2018, on an average, 500,000 Indians die every year, unable to get an organ transplant in time due to the shortage of organs. According to the Organ Retrieval Banking Organization of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in India, there is an approximate need of at least 1.5 to 2 lakh kidney transplants a year, while only about 8,000 transplants happen. Also, as against 40,000 to 50,000 liver transplants required in a year, only 1,700 to 1,800 happen. About 50,000 heart transplants required every year, but very few heart transplants happen every year. Each year, thousands of people die waiting for a transplant. Every single day, at least 15 patients die waiting for an organ, and every 10 minutes, a new name is added to the waiting list. Now, in spite of India being the most willing country to donate organs, this was found out by a survey, and also India performing the second largest number of transplants in the world, next only to the United States of America, as per the data available on the Global Observatory on Donation and Transplantation. Our organ donation rate, as I just stated, is one of the lowest in the world. So let's now ask a couple of questions. Who can be an organ donor? All of us can be organ donors. It's irrespective of caste, of creed, of religion, or community. However, those having certain medical conditions such as active cancer, HIV/AIDS, infection such as sepsis or intravenous 4-drug use are excluded from donation depending on the type of transplantation. Diabetics are usually excluded only from being living donors, again, depending on the type of transplantation. Children can also be organ donors after taking the consent for organ donation from their parents and other factors also. The donor age could extend up to 70 years or more if the person is medically fit. Blood group match and histocompatibility of the donor and the recipient are checked for the matching abilities. Which organs and tissues can be donated? In India, we have the Transplantation of Human Organs Act of 1994. It states that living donors include spousal donors, parents, now grandparents also are included, siblings and children. There's also a possibility that emotionally related donor could be used but with special authorized permission. Living organ donors can donate a kidney, a lung, or a portion of the liver, pancreas, or intestine. Healthy adults, depending on the criteria, can donate blood stem cells, cord blood stem cells, peripheral blood stem cells, and bone marrow. Sometimes skin and single bone, the fibula, only after following certain guidelines and obtaining medical permission can be done by a live donor. Deceased organ donors can donate their kidneys, liver, lungs, heart, pancreas, intestines, and now even the hand has been included. After that, tissues can also be donated and include skin, bone, and other musculoskeletal tissues, blood vessels, heart valve, and cornea. One cadaver organ donor can save up to 8 lives. Pancreas, heart, 2 lungs, liver, 2 kidneys, and intestines, and can enhance the lives also of 50 people by way of tissue donation. So these, friends, are the basic facts we have. Now we ask, what does the Catholic Church teach on organ donation? Our life is in God's hand. God is the author of life, and our life is God's gift to us. Psalm 8 reminds us to acknowledge God who created us and care for us and say, "Great is your name, Lord. Its majesty fills the earth." We need to protect, preserve, and promote the gift of life that God has given us. When organ transplantation is undertaken, the work of God becomes manifest through those who donate their organs. Way back, we have Pope Pius XII, who declared that based on the principle of brotherly love, which is also called fraternal charity, cadaver donations are acceptable to the Catholic Church. He underscored the point that the donor is making a sacrifice of himself for the good of another person. According to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, number 2296, organ donation after death is a noble and a meritorious act and is to be encouraged as an expression of generous solidarity. Hence, organ donation is not only a praiseworthy act, but it is also to be encouraged, provided the stipulated conditions are met. The Catechism explains here 3 important ethical conditions, and then I shall add another one. The first condition: organ transplants are in conformity with the moral law if and only if the physical and the psychological dangers and the risks to the donor are proportionate to the good sought to the recipient. In other words, the donation should not sacrifice or impair the essential functioning of the donor. Further, live donation should not incur future health problems to the donor. The second condition, it is not morally acceptable if the donor or his proxy has not given explicit consent. The donor must give his free and informed consent prior to death and also inform the family members or the near and dear ones, so their family also is prepared for the event. Third condition, it is not morally admissible to bring about disabling mutilation or death of a human being, even in order to delay the death of other persons. This means that before allowing the noble act of organ donation after death, it must be totally verified by the competent authorities that the donor is truly dead. There's a fourth important ethical condition, namely, any procedure which tends to commercialize human organs or to consider them as exchange or trade or payment of money must be considered morally unacceptable, because the use of the body as an object is to violate the dignity of the human person. This is what Pope John Paul has said in his address to the International Congress on Transplants, point number 3. Further, according to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, number 2301, autopsies can be morally permitted for legal inquests or scientific research. Saint Pope John Paul II was clear about the merits of donating one's entire body to science, called total body donation. In 2003, in his address to the Pontifical Academy of Life, he said, "When a person donates his or her body to science, medical students can study and acquaint themselves with the human body and learn from the donated bodies, so that they can go on to become researchers and healers of other human bodies." The final disposition of the remains of the body after organ donation or medical research must be done with great reverence and entombed or buried or cremated according to the norms established by the Catholic Church. And that is a very important consideration to take note of. In 1999, Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, even before he became Pope Benedict XVI, became a registered organ donor. And this is what he said. He described organ donation as being an act of love that is morally licit as long as it is free and spontaneous. And he carried his organ donation membership card with his personal details on it at all times. If any of you want to register as an organ donor, for example in Mumbai, you just type on the internet www.ztccmumbai.org and fill in the details online. It's a very simple procedure. Saint Pope John Paul II gave his support for organ donation, calling it a genuine act of love, and noting that he had also earlier called it a way of nurturing a genuine culture of life. On 29th August 2000, the same Pope John Paul II delivered an address to the 18th International Congress of the Transplantation Society in Rome. And this is what he said. Every organ transplant has its source in a decision of great ethical value. The decision to offer without reward, a part of one's own body for the health and well-being of another person. And was the address to the participants in a Congress on Organ Transplants in June 20th, 1999. It says, "Here precisely lies the nobility of the gesture, a gesture which is a genuine act of love. It is not a matter of giving away something that belongs to us, but of giving something of ourselves. For by virtue of its substantial union with a spiritual soul, the human body cannot be considered as a mere complex of tissues and organs and functions. Rather, the human body is a constitutive part of the person who manifests and expresses himself through it." And by saying so, Pope John Paul II further emphasized that transplants are a great leap forward in science's service to humankind, and not just a few people today, but so many that owe their lives to an organ transplant. Increasingly, this technique of transplant has proven to be a valid means of attaining the primary goal of medicine, the service of the human person. There's a need today to instill in people's hearts, especially in the hearts of the young, a genuine and deep appreciation of the need for brotherly love, a love that can find expression in the decision to become an organ donor. Organ and tissue donation is heroic and praiseworthy. As an act of charity, organ and tissue donation have repeatedly received magisterial support and encouragement. In fact, in the document, The Gospel of Life, it lists organ donation among the heroic acts, stating that a particularly praiseworthy example of such gestures is the donation of organs performed in an ethical manner with a view to offering a chance of health and even of life itself to the sick who sometimes have no hope. That's number 86 of the document. People ask today whether they will get their donated organs back after the resurrection, especially those who want to be donors. The Catechism, number 2300, teaches, "The bodies of the dead must be treated with respect and with charity in faith and hope of the resurrection." The Christian conviction and Christian faith concerning the resurrection of the body does not make resurrection depend on the intact conditions of the body when it is buried or cremated. Rather, resurrection depends on God's power to make all things new. The conviction of the resurrection, therefore, is not inconsistent with the donation of organs. The victory over death is finally a divine victory. The act of love, which is expressed with a gift of one's own vital organs, is a genuine testimony of charity that knows how to look beyond death so that life always wins. The recipient is aware of the value of this great gesture, which is a testament of love. The book of Revelation, chapter 21, verse 4 to 5, tell us, "Death will be no more. For the first things have passed away. See, I am making all things new." By way of conclusion, I would like to quote Pope Francis when on 14th October 2014, he described the act of organ donation as a testimony of love for our neighbors. when he met with the Transplantation Committee for the Council of Europe who gathered in Rome. The gifts that God has given to us to use in this life, our eyes, our hearts, our liver, and all the other organs, can be passed on to someone in need. Almost all religions support voluntary organ donation as a charitable act of great benefit not only to the other but also to the community. The decision to offer without reward a part of one's own body for the health and well-being of another is morally justified by the principle of fraternal charity or love, which will be of great benefit to the recipient, provided the functional integrity of the donor is maintained. That means the donor is able to function well in his life. The gospel of life invites us to love others with acts of selfless generosity. Heroic actions are a sharing in the mystery of the cross, and a particularly praiseworthy example is the donation of one's own organ. What a wonderful gesture of life-giving love. Although organ donation is not mandatory, it is commendable as an act of charity. You and I, we are just caretakers for the life that God has given us. The letter to the Galatians chapter 6 verse 10 inspires us and says, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people. May God bless each of you and have a nice evening.